Jackie Chan stepped out of his big fancy car onto the wet streets of Los Angeles. He was ready to go to another big movie party. But then he saw something that made him stop. In a dark alley, sitting under a dirty old blanket, was someone he knew. Jackie's heart started beating fast. Could it really be her? He looked again. Yes, it was his daughter. His very own daughter was living on the streets, just a few steps away from where rich and famous people were about to walk on a red carpet, wearing shiny clothes and diamonds. Jackie had fought bad guys in movies, jumped off tall buildings, and done many dangerous stunts. But right now he feels more scared than ever before. Jackie and his daughter hadn't talked in a long time. He had been busy making movies, traveling around the world, and becoming a big star. He had missed her birthdays, her school events, and so many special moments. Slowly they stopped talking, and after a while they didn't speak at all. He had tried calling her a few times, but it was too late. She was hurt. She was angry. And now here she was sitting on the cold ground, shivering in the rain. Jackie took a deep breath and started walking toward her. His daughter looked up. At first, her eyes were big with surprise, but then she frowned. "What do you want?" she asked. Her voice was rough, tired, and full of pain. "I don't need your pity." Her words hurt Jackie more than any punch he had ever taken in a movie. He reached out his hand, but she didn't take it. He realized this wasn't something he could fix right away. Jackie knew that fixing their broken relationship would take time. He couldn't just say sorry and expect everything to be okay. He had to show her that he really cared. So instead of telling her to come with him, he did something she didn't expect. He sat down next to her on the cold, wet ground, even though he was wearing a fancy, expensive suit. "Then I'll stay here with you tonight," he said. "And tomorrow too, if that's what it takes." For hours they sat there in silence. Not far away, a big movie party was happening. Celebrities were laughing, taking pictures, and having fun. People started wondering why Jackie wasn't there. But Jackie didn't care. He had found something much more important than a movie party. When the sun finally came up, his daughter spoke again. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Why now?" she asked. It was a good question. Jackie had been asking himself the same thing all night. "Because I finally understand what really matters," he said, his voice shaking with emotion. "And it's not over there." He pointed toward the bright lights of the movie theaters. "It's right here." That morning was the start of something new. But Jackie didn't just give her money or buy her a nice apartment. That would have been too easy. He wanted to truly understand what had happened to her, how she ended up on the streets, and what he could do to help her, not just for one night, but for the rest of her life. They went to a small diner to eat breakfast. No one recognized Jackie there, and for the first time in years, his daughter started to talk. She told him everything. She told him how she had felt forgotten by him, how she had made bad choices, how those choices led to bad friends, bad habits, and finally to having no home at all. She had been too proud to ask for help. She thought Jackie wouldn't care. "I thought you were too busy with your perfect life to worry about my mess," she said, staring at her cup of coffee. Jackie's eyes filled with tears. He shook his head. "My life hasn't been perfect," he said. "It's been empty. Because you weren't in it." Jackie did something that shocked everyone. He put his movie career on hold. He canceled big projects, stopped going to events, and spent all his time trying to fix his relationship with his daughter. He didn't just want to help her. He wanted to be there for her. The first step was getting her into a place where she could get help. But instead of sending her to a fancy rehab for celebrities, he took her to a simple, caring place where regular people went to get better. Jackie visited her every day. He listened more than he talked. One day in a family therapy session, Jackie said, "My father taught me to be brave when fighting enemies. But I've been a coward when it comes to fixing my mistakes as a father." His daughter looked up, surprised. She had never heard him speak like that before. When she got stronger, Jackie faced another big decision. His daughter needed a home, a fresh start. But he didn't want to just buy her a fancy house. That wouldn't fix everything. So Jackie did something incredible. He bought an old, rundown apartment building. But not to make money. Not to turn it into fancy condos. Instead, he turned it into a home for people recovering from addiction and homelessness. His daughter would live there too, not as his rich daughter, but as someone who could help others. She was given responsibilities. She had to work. She had to learn to stand on her own 2 feet. "My father taught me that real strength isn't about fighting," she told the people moving in. "It's about helping others when they fall." Jackie watched from the back of the room, so proud he could barely speak. People in Hollywood thought he was doing this for attention. But months passed and Jackie never called the press. He never took credit. He just kept working. And then something amazing happened. Other famous people started helping too. A movie director whose brother had been homeless offered to tell the stories of the people in the building. A musician came to teach music. A famous chef started cooking classes to help people learn new skills. All of this happened because Jackie sat down in the rain next to his daughter instead of walking away. 6 months later, his daughter stood in front of a small group. There were no cameras, no reporters, just the people who lived there. "A year ago, I was invisible," she said. "People walked past me like I didn't exist. Even my father." She looked at Jackie. "But then he saw me, really saw me. He didn't try to fix me like a problem. He just loved me." Jackie wiped away a tear. A young man came up to Jackie and said, "I grew up watching your movies. You were always my hero. But now, I admire you for something even bigger." Jackie smiled. "I spent years trying to impress the world. But the only person I really needed to impress was my daughter." Their work didn't stop. They visited more homeless shelters. They helped more people. "My father taught me that everyone has a story," his daughter said, "and everyone deserves a second chance." 1 year later, they stood on stage at a big event about helping homeless people. The crowd clapped, but Jackie barely noticed. He was too busy looking at his daughter. She was healthy. She was happy. After the event, a reporter asked Jackie, "Will this change the kinds of movies you make?" Jackie thought for a moment. "I've spent my life playing heroes in movies," he said. "But real heroes don't fight bad guys. They show up for the people who need them the most." His daughter squeezed his hand. "For a long time I was mad at you," she said. "I thought your fans got the best of you and I got whatever was left." Jackie felt a sting in his heart. But then she smiled. "But now I see something," she said. "You never give up. Not in movies. And not on me." Jackie felt happier than he ever had before. Not because of a movie. Not because of an award. But because after everything, his daughter was finally home. That night, a short video became very popular on the internet. It was only 15 seconds long. It showed Jackie Chan and his daughter walking together, holding hands and laughing about something only they knew. There was no dramatic music, no big action scenes, just a father and daughter who had found their way back to each other after a long time. Someone who had seen their journey from the start wrote a simple caption: "The greatest comeback story Jackie Chan has ever starred in wasn't filmed for a movie. It was lived, one day at a time, by a father who never gave up on his daughter." Sometimes, the most amazing things are not the ones we see in movies. They are the quiet choices we make when no one is watching. To say sorry, to fix broken relationships, to see the worth in people the world has ignored. That's what Jackie Chan showed us without even throwing a single punch. If you have ever had a hard time fixing a relationship with someone you love, or if you know someone who has, share this story. Because the most important message is the simplest one. It is never too late to try again. Jackie Chan says, "I have made over 200 films, but my most important role has no script. It's being a father who finally learned what matters most." But the story of Jackie Chan and his daughter didn't end with that video. In many ways, it was just beginning. 3 months after that video, Jackie got a phone call that changed everything. His daughter had relapsed. She had gone back to her old bad habits. It felt like a heavy punch to Jackie's heart. They had worked so hard. People had praised their story. And now, suddenly, they were back to the beginning. This was not how Jackie imagined their happy ending. When he reached her small apartment, she wouldn't even look at him. She was ashamed. The old Jackie might have gotten angry. But the new Jackie sat beside her gently and asked, "What do you need from me right now?" She whispered, "I need you not to give up on me even though I gave up on myself." Jackie learned something very important that day. Recovery isn't a straight road. It has ups and downs. The real test is not avoiding failure. It's about what you do when failure happens. In movies, we film the same scene again and again until we get it right, Jackie told her. Sometimes 20 or 30 times before it's perfect. Life is the same. We keep trying until we get it right. So they started again. Back to rehab, back to meetings, back to healing. But this time, something was different. The setback had not broken their bond. It had made it stronger. Jackie's daughter now knew that no matter what, he would not leave her. Somehow the news of her relapse got out. The same newspapers that had told their inspiring story now wrote bad things. They said maybe Jackie had helped his daughter only for attention. Cameras waited outside the rehab center trying to take pictures of them looking sad. For a man who had spent his life building a strong public image, this was very painful. But Jackie refused to fight back. Some battles happen in front of the world, he told his friends. But this one needs to happen in private. Real healing happens in the shadows. Instead of stepping back, Jackie worked harder. He expanded his program to help more people struggling with addiction and mental health problems. He also did something no one expected. He added relapse support to his program. He told people, "We shouldn't pretend recovery is always easy. We need to remove the shame and help people when they feel the weakest." Some donors didn't like this idea. "Won't this make people think failure is okay?" they asked. But Jackie stood firm. "If we really want to help, we need to be honest about the struggles, not just show the easy parts." 6 months later, Jackie's daughter stood in front of a big group of people. This time she didn't talk like a winner. Instead, she spoke honestly. "I wanted my recovery to be perfect," she said, "especially with my father watching, with all of you believing in me. When I slipped, I felt like I had failed everyone." She took a deep breath. "But my father told me something important. Failure isn't falling down. It's refusing to get back up. And sometimes getting back up is the hardest part. But it's also where real strength is." The room was silent. People who had also struggled listened carefully. "So I'm not here to say I won. I'm here to tell you it's worth fighting. And you don't have to fight alone." Jackie sat in the back of the room. Tears streamed down his face. This was her real strength. Not in being perfect, but in being honest. Not everyone liked what Jackie was doing. Some big companies that had promised to help backed away. They didn't want to be part of a program that showed the hard parts of addiction. At first, this made Jackie sad. He had hoped for powerful friends. But then, something special happened. Instead of big companies, smaller, more passionate groups came forward. They weren't looking for fame. They actually understood the problem. They had been helping homeless people and addicts for years. Jackie realized, we don't need big names. We need real helpers. And so his project grew, not with fame but with real love. One night, 2 years later, Jackie and his daughter sat outside their center. Now they had 3 buildings, a community garden, and a small cafe run by people who had recovered. Jackie's daughter asked, "Do you miss being famous?" Jackie thought for a moment. "I miss parts of it, but I don't miss the emptiness." He looked at his daughter. "In movies, I played a hero for a few hours. But here I see real heroes every day." Then a young man walked up. He looked nervous but grateful. "Excuse me," he said to Jackie's daughter. "I just wanted to thank you. Yesterday at the meeting you said setbacks are part of the journey. I was going to leave last night, but your words made me stay." Jackie's daughter hugged him. "One day at a time," she said. "That's all any of us can do." Jackie watched. This was his daughter's real impact. Not in being perfect, but in giving hope. That night, Jackie got a call. A big movie studio wanted him to act in a film about addiction recovery. They said it will be inspiring with a happy ending. But Jackie said no. Real recovery isn't a happy ending in 2 hours. It's a long, messy fight. "I can't pretend otherwise." The studio was shocked. "Then what kind of story would you want to tell?" Jackie thought carefully. "A real one. One that shows the truth, not just what makes people feel good." Maybe Jackie realized this was his next big role. Not as a movie star, but as a storyteller. A storyteller who told the truth. That decision was another big change in their journey. Instead of working with a big movie studio, Jackie and his daughter started working with a filmmaker who made movies about people without homes. Together, they planned a movie that would mix their personal story with the stories of others in recovery. It wasn't about heroes and people being saved. It was about people walking the same hard road together. When the movie came out, it wasn't a big Hollywood film with lots of attention. It played in small film festivals with little excitement. But it gave something very special, real hope. Not the kind of hope where everything magically gets better, but the kind that knows life is tough and still chooses to keep going. At first, critics weren't sure what to call the movie. Was it about a celebrity? Was it a film about a serious issue? Was it a personal story? The truth was, it didn't fit into just one box, just like the journey of recovery doesn't. But the people who watched it, especially those who knew what addiction and homelessness felt like, felt deeply connected to it. At a small showing in a community center, an older woman came up to Jackie and his daughter, tears running down her face. "My son has lived on the streets for 12 years, she said, her voice shaking. "I've almost lost hope so many times. But your story, it shows me that healing is possible even after so many years. It gives me strength to keep trying." Moments like this showed Jackie and his daughter they had made the right choice. Their film wouldn't make millions of dollars or win big awards, but it was reaching the people who needed it the most. It was making space for conversations that usually only happened in small support groups or therapy rooms. Now, people were talking about these struggles in the open without shame. As the movie became more well-known in recovery communities, Jackie and his daughter were invited to speak at meetings and events. They weren't just there as famous people supporting a cause. They had real experience and knowledge, both in personal healing and in bigger changes needed in the world. At one big meeting, a government official asked Jackie what laws could help the homeless crisis. The old Jackie might have avoided a strong answer, trying not to upset anyone. But now he had real knowledge to share. "We need to stop just fixing the symptoms and start fixing the causes," he said firmly. "People need mental health care that actually helps them. Addiction treatment shouldn't stop after 30 days. Housing should be the start of recovery, not just a reward after someone has earned it. And most of all, we have to stop blaming people for being homeless. It's not just their problem, it's all of ours." His daughter added, "And we need to change how we measure success. It's not just about how many people get a house, it's about how many stay housed. It's not just about getting people into treatment, it's about making sure they have support afterward. The hardest part comes after the crisis is over." Their words touched many people, even those who had never thought much about homelessness before. Some lawmakers who used to see it only as a money problem or a public issue started to see the real human side. Several of them even asked Jackie and his daughter to help give advice on new laws. 3 years after that rainy night when Jackie found his daughter, he stood on a different kind of stage. It was the opening day of the Chan Family Recovery Campus, a special place that combined housing, job training, therapy, and community support. The campus was paid for with help from private donations, government support, and Jackie's own money. It was built from everything they had learned about what really helps people recover. But the most special part wasn't just the way the program worked. It was who worked there. Over 60% of the staff were people who had once been in the program themselves. People who had been homeless or struggling with addiction but now had stable lives and wanted to help others. Jackie's daughter was now the director of the campus. She had gone back to school, earned her degrees, and brought both professional skills and personal experience to the job. As Jackie stood in front of the crowd, he saw some celebrities and government officials, but the most important people were in the front rows, the people in recovery. Some were still struggling, others looked confident and strong, but they all belonged there. Jackie took a deep breath and spoke. "In my movie career, I was famous for never using stunt doubles. I wanted every fight scene, every jump, every fall to be real. But now, I know that the most important thing to be real about isn't stunts, it's our emotions. It's being honest about our struggles, our failures, and how much we need each other." He looked at the campus behind him. "This place isn't just about giving people services. It's about creating connections. Because I've learned something. My daughter has taught me something. The opposite of addiction isn't just sobriety. The opposite of homelessness isn't just housing. The opposite of both is community." His daughter stepped forward, standing beside him. Just a few years ago, she had been lost, alone in an alley. Now she stood strong and confident. "3 years ago, I felt invisible," she said, her voice steady. "Today I am seen. Not just by my father, but by all of you. And my mission is to help others feel seen too, with the same kindness that saved my life." As the campus grew, people from all over the world came to visit. They wanted to learn how to build similar programs in their own cities. But with this attention also came criticism. One morning, Jackie arrived at the campus and saw a group of protesters outside. They held signs that said things like, "Not in our neighborhood," and "Protect our property values." Jackie felt like he had been punched. He had faced challenges before, doubt from officials, hesitation from donors, but this was different. These were normal families, people he had wanted to help. And now they were against him. For a moment, the old Jackie wanted to step back, let his security team handle it. But he had learned too much about honesty and connection. So he did something no one expected. He walked straight into the crowd. "My name is Jackie Chan," he said, standing before them without a microphone, without a bodyguard. "I understand you're worried about our campus expansion. Can you tell me why?" The crowd went silent. Then a middle-aged woman stepped forward. "My husband and I worked for 30 years to afford our home," she said, her voice shaking. "We've heard about crime increasing near places like this. We're scared for our children. Can you understand that?" Jackie nodded. "I can. Family and safety matter to me too. That's why I started this work." He pointed at the campus. "Would you be willing to come inside? To see what we actually do here?" The woman hesitated, then slowly nodded. "All right. I'll come look." What happened next became famous in recovery communities. Jackie personally gave the protest leaders a tour. They met residents, heard their stories, and saw that these weren't criminals. They were people trying to rebuild their lives. At the end of the tour, the woman looked at Jackie and asked, "If this place is so great, would you want it next door to your home?" Jackie didn't even pause. "It is next door to my home," he said. "I live here. With them. They're not just clients. They're my neighbors." The crowd was shocked. A rich, famous man choosing to live here? Slowly, their fear started to change into understanding. Months later, the same woman stood beside Jackie at the groundbreaking for the expansion. "I was wrong," she admitted. "I was afraid of people I didn't know. But I've learned that recovery and community aren't opposites. They need each other." And with that, a new journey began. Even as Jackie shared his work with the world, he thought about something important. All his life, he had given many interviews telling stories about his movies and keeping up the image that made him famous. But now he realized something. The best stories weren't the ones that were perfect and polished. They were the real ones, the messy ones, the ones that connected people. "Tell her," he started, then stopped for a moment, trying to find the right words. "Tell her that success isn't what I thought it was. Tell her I spent years chasing trophies and awards when the most important thing was right in front of me. Tell her that my greatest achievement isn't in my career, it's right here in this garden watching people heal together." His daughter nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. Then she asked him a question he wasn't expecting. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "All the years we lost? The pain we went through?" Jackie had asked himself this question many times. He had missed birthdays. He hadn't been there when his daughter needed him. She had even ended up alone on the streets. It had been a heavy burden on his heart. But as he looked around at the community they had built together, he saw things differently. There were gardens, buildings, and people working hard to change their lives. "I regret the choices that hurt you," he said honestly. "I wish I had been a better father earlier. But I can't regret where we are now or what we've built together. All of this exists because we found each other again. Because we turned our pain into something good." His daughter thought about that for a moment. Then she spoke again. "In recovery they talk about making amends," she said. "It doesn't just mean saying sorry. It means changing, doing something better. Maybe that's what we've done, not just for each other but for everyone here who needed help." As they sat together, a small group of people walked past, talking and laughing. One of them, an older woman who had once lived on the streets, stopped in front of Jackie. She looked at him with a big smile. "You know what I tell people about this place?" she said. "I tell them this is the first time in 15 years anyone has asked me what I can do instead of just what I need. It makes me feel human again." Then she walked away, not knowing how deeply her words touched Jackie. That evening, as they prepared for a big anniversary celebration, Jackie got a surprise phone call. It was from a big humanitarian organization. They told him he had been chosen for a special award for his work helping the homeless. It was one of the biggest honors in the world. "Your work has changed the way people think about recovery," the caller said. "The selection committee was especially impressed by how personally involved you are." Jackie listened. Years ago, this would have meant everything to him: fame, recognition, and a chance to stand on a grand stage. But as he thought about it, he hesitated. He looked around at the people at the recovery campus. He thought of his daughter, who had taught him that real healing happens in small moments, not big fancy events. "I'm very honored," Jackie said. "But can the award be given to the whole recovery campus, not just me? And instead of a big ceremony far away, could we do it here with the people who made this possible?" The caller was quiet for a moment. Awards like this were usually given at fancy events with famous people, not in small community gatherings. "Let me talk to the committee," the caller finally said. "It's unusual, but maybe it's the right thing to do." 3 months later, on the same date that Jackie and his daughter had reunited, something special happened. Instead of a fancy award show, they had a big celebration at the recovery campus. The award wasn't given just to Jackie. It was given to everyone: the staff, the residents, the people who had been part of the journey. When it was Jackie's turn to speak, he smiled at the crowd. "In my movies, people knew me for doing my own stunts," he said. "But this work has taught me something important. Some things in life can't be done alone. Recovery isn't something one person does. It takes a whole community." He looked at the people around him, those who had struggled with addiction, those who had helped them, and those who had once doubted them but now stood beside them. "Everyone here has given and received help," he said. "That's what we've learned together, that healing happens when we truly see each other." The crowd clapped, and Jackie saw his daughter smiling at him. They had come a long way. Later that night, a young woman approached Jackie nervously. He recognized her as one of the newest residents. "I used to watch your movies as a kid," she said softly. "I never thought I'd end up in a place like this. And I never thought someone like you would understand someone like me." Jackie could tell she had more to say, so he waited. My dad hasn't talked to me in 6 years, she admitted. This morning your daughter told me I should talk to you. She said you'd understand both sides. Jackie's heart ached. He knew how hard it was to fix broken relationships. Do you want to sit somewhere quieter and talk? He asked gently. She nodded. They sat on a bench at the edge of the celebration. Around them, the recovery campus was filled with laughter and music. It won't be easy, Jackie said honestly. But I've learned something. Things that matter most are worth fighting for, even when you don't know how they'll turn out. As he spoke, he realized how much he had changed. 5 years ago, he had been rich and famous, but he had been missing something important. Now, as he watched his daughter, full of confidence and kindness, he knew he had finally found what truly mattered. Jackie had spent his whole life making movies about heroes. But now he had become one, not by doing incredible stunts but by showing up for the people who needed him. And in doing so, he had learned the greatest lesson of all. We are all broken in some way. We all need help to heal. And when we help each other, we become whole again. Jackie's daughter stood at the edge of the campus garden. She pushed her hands into the soil like she wanted to grow roots. Her phone buzzed with a new email. A big health company wanted her to lead a team that helps people recover from addiction. She could go anywhere in the world. The message said she would start next month. She stared at the email. This was everything she had worked for. It was proof that her journey, from dark alleyways to helping others, had meaning. But something didn't feel right. At the next meeting, the campus leaders sat around a big table. The CFO, the person who handles money, spoke looking serious. We are running out of money, he said. The government stopped giving us grants, big companies aren't helping, and donations are down by 60%. Jackie listened. He waited for the room to be silent. Then he said, we will change. We will learn to take care of ourselves. The campus became a place of new ideas. The greenhouse grew more food so they could feed people and sell extra at the farmer's market. A woodshop started making desks for schools. Even the little cafe changed. If you bought one coffee, you helped pay for someone else's. But Jackie's daughter still felt unsure. One night, she found Jackie sitting in the dojo meditating. She sat down beside him and asked, Dad, what if I leave? What if I take the job? Jackie didn't open his eyes. And what if you stay? He asked. She hesitated. I might be angry. At you. At myself. Maybe both. Jackie chuckled softly. I understand. They talked for hours. She told him she didn't want to just be Jackie Chan's daughter. She wanted to make her own name. He listened, thinking about his own childhood. Then he smiled and showed her an old picture on his phone. It was him in a park in Paris back in 1980. A little girl waved in the background. I ran away from home once, he said. I built a life nobody expected. But I missed her. He pointed to the girl. My mother. She touched the edge of the photo. So what should I do? Jackie stood and held out his hand. You do what you need to do. If you leave, you're not running away. You're flying. He paused. Just promise me one thing. What? She asked. Come back when you're ready. The campus changed. Some people still lived there, but others joined online. Volunteers from around the world helped over the phone. The campus survived. When the daughter announced she was leaving, everyone threw her a party. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a new beginning. The residents sang a song for her. You grew from the cracks in the pavement. Now your roots hold both worlds together. She left, but not completely. Twice a week, she joined therapy calls. Once a month, she came back to teach. Her new title was Senior Advisor. The campus newsletter shared the news, but no one made a big deal about it. Then one day, a storm flooded the greenhouse. The daughter rushed back, covered in mud, helping to save the plants. What's next for you? A resident asked. She looked at the muddy plants, the determined people, the place that had survived so much. Same as you, she said. Grow smarter. By winter, the campus built its first tiny shelter for homeless people. It was small, warm, and safe. Graduates from the program helped design it, and people from all over the internet donated money to make it happen. At the opening ceremony, the daughter stood beside Jackie. Rain soaked her suit. Look at us, she said. Saving the world in sneakers. Jackie grinned. Sneakers and syrup. She laughed. The diner? The diner. The place they had once talked about life. That same week, a new mural appeared on a campus wall. Jackie, mid-kung fu pose, stood beside his daughter, who held a spray can. A former resident painted it. The caption read, We all need a second stunt. Then one morning the phone rang. The border police were calling. 7 people had just been released. They had been part of a human trafficking ring, Not just victims but also helpers of the bad guys. No shelter wanted them. They're dangerous, the officer said. But your campus is their only hope. Jackie's daughter froze. These weren't easy stories. These were people the world wanted to forget. Jackie sighed when she told him. We can't, he said. Not this time. The board held a meeting in the greenhouse. The air was tense. Are we crazy? A supervisor shouted. These people hurt others. What if they hurt us? A woman who had once been trafficked herself stood up. Her voice was shaky but strong. Hurt comes from hurting, she said. They did bad things. But who turned them into tools? The argument went on for hours. Finally, the daughter stood up. We'll let them in, she said. Not as heroes. Not as victims. As people. Her eyes met Jackie's. If we turn away now, we become what we fight. The 7 arrived at night. They looked thin, tired, afraid. One man had scars on his wrist from being tied up for years. I didn't choose this life, he whispered. The campus struggled. Some residents were angry. You don't get to be saved twice, a woman screamed, her own pain bursting out. The daughter stepped forward. Her voice was calm but strong. We don't get to choose who deserves a chance, she said. That's why it's called grace. Days passed. Then weeks. The newcomers worked, went to therapy, and slowly changed. One of them began carving small wooden boxes, giving them as gifts. But the world outside wasn't so kind. The news exploded. People called it a crisis. Some said the campus was helping criminals. A reporter asked Jackie, aren't you helping monsters? Jackie's answer was simple. Monsters aren't born. They're made. If we refuse to see their humanity, then who is the real monster? It caused a storm. Donors pulled out. Volunteers quit. But inside the campus, something special happened. One night, the trafficked woman sat with one of the former traffickers. She taught him how to braid friendship bracelets. Soft laughter filled the room. One of the men with scars walked up to the daughter. I don't know if I can get better, he said, but I can stop running. She smiled. That's the bravest step. Then winter came. A terrible snowstorm hit. The campus lost power. The new arrivals, the ones everyone had feared, walked into the storm. They found generators and dragged them back through the snow. Their bravery saved lives. When the news spread, people saw them differently. One person mailed a hand-knitted blanket with a note. #Forgiveness is audacious. By spring, the campus held a festival. People told their stories, not as victims or villains but as people. The daughter found Jackie in the garden. He was tending a rose bush he planted years ago. Remember when you said the opposite of homelessness is community? She asked. Jackie smiled. Looks like you proved it. She leaned against him. No more tension. Just understanding. We have to let go someday, right? She said. Jackie nodded toward the recovery wing, now run by the very people who had once been outcast. Already did, he said. Years later, the daughter stood at a world conference. Jackie sat in the audience. She didn't talk about success. She talked about scars. We don't fix people, she said. We fix systems. And we prove that even the darkest stories can have another chapter. She looked into the crowd. There, smiling, was the man with the scarred hands. He was now leading his own recovery program. He mouthed thank you. She turned to Jackie. He lifted his cup in a silent toast. Well done. Outside, a statue stood, Jackie, young mid-kung fu leap, and his daughter reaching up beside him. The words beneath it read, the greatest fight isn't against others. It's the fight to remember, even brokenness can be a beginning. If you enjoyed this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more exciting stories filled with adventure, mystery, and unforgettable moments. Your support means the world. It keeps these stories coming and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.